What is up, guys? Sean here, and today we're going to talk about Cenk Uygur deciding to run for Congress. So while I'm sure most of you have already seen this video coming because a lot of you have already heard that Cenk Uygur, founder and host of the Young Turks, has decided to throw his hat in the ring for California's 25th district. He's running in a special election for Katie Hill's old seat. For those of you who aren't familiar why Katie Hill's old seat is up for special election, it's because Katie Hill had to resign among rumors that she was having an inappropriate affair with one of her staffers, and in order to avoid an ethics investigation, she ended up stepping down from Congress. Well, that seat's open, and now Cenk Uygur, progressive fighter and champion, has decided that it's his time to shine, and he's running for it. Now, Cenk is running on a bold strategy that nobody, and I mean absolutely nobody, has ever heard of before. He is running as a fighter, somebody who will fight for the people in his district and fight for the American people. Most Congress people, most Democrats, most any Congress people of any party, they run as pro-corruption and they run to not fight. But Cenk Uygur, completely different. He's running as a fighter and he's gonna go fight for you. And the reason that I know that he's running as a fighter and that he's going to go fight for you is because Cenk Uygur has said repeatedly in this hour-long interview that he's a fighter and he's gonna go fight for you.
I will not be a standard politician. I will fight for them. I'm gonna fight to get money out of politics. If you wanna fight, and if you want a real fighter, to fight for women's rights on every issue. But what's the size of the fight in you? Because look, I'm gonna fight like hell, and I think I'm gonna win this race. This is the day to fight more than any other day. You say to people on that day, don't fight today. And when no one is paying attention anymore, that's when you're supposed to fight? No, you get in the fight right now. Don't get in the fight then. People believe in sending a fighter to Washington. What you need is fighters. Every day I wanna fight for you. So
he's not gonna ask Nancy Pelosi pretty please.
So what's our battle plan for passing the bills if you're a progressive? Keep asking Nancy Pelosi pretty please? She just told you I don't care for Medicare for all. Guess what? I don't care for Nancy Pelosi. Are you allowed to say as a Democrat, I'm not a politician, I'm allowed to say whatever the hell I want. I gotta fight for you.
He doesn't wanna be in their club. He doesn't even like their club. He's running to fight for you guys.
A lot of congressmen are like, yes, I made it, I'm in power, I'm in the club. I don't care about their club. I couldn't care less. I don't even like their club.
Now look, I have to be perfectly honest. When I first heard Cenk announce that he was running for Congress, I thought he was gonna have a pretty decent chance at this election. And the reason why I thought he was gonna have a good chance is because Cenk Uygur was running in a special election. Special elections often have way lower voter turnout. And when you have an election that has way lower voter turnout, somebody with some name brand recognition will likely do better in those type of elections. So while a lot of people dismiss Cenk out of hand as a congressional candidate, initially, I was like, okay, this is something that is likely to happen, at least for this special election. Another reason I thought Cenk Uygur had a really decent chance at winning this congressional seat is because it's a special election because the congresswoman had to resign from this seat. It is way easier statistically to not have to go up against an incumbent to go for an empty congressional seat than it would be if you were actually going up against an incumbent, because an incumbent has all these different advantages. They can send out congressional mailers, they have all these connections, they've made friends in Congress. And when you're going up against an empty seat that everybody's competing for, that nobody holds office in, you just have a way bigger advantage than if you're not doing so. So based on some of these key factors, from the outset, I was not dismissive of Cenk running for Congress whatsoever. I knew he had a lot of controversies. I knew he said a lot of dumb things on video over the past 10 to 15 years that the Young Turks has been on YouTube. But I thought that with all those advantages going into this congressional race, that he would do pretty fine. So I sat back and decided to take in some of his campaign strategy and see how it was going before I decided to make this video. And it turns out, things are not going well for Mr. Cenk Uygur.
Right away. you're not purple, and 2, you're a carpetbagger. You're not from there. Overcome them.
You gotta love Chris Cuomo hitting him hard on the fact that he's a carpetbagger and he does not live in the district. But it's actually worse than that, because one of the things that I discovered while doing research into Cenk's 2020 campaign is that his campaign headquarters is also not in California 25. He lives in a way wealthier area. His Young Turks show is in a way wealthier area. And he really has no connection whatsoever to California 25. And when pressed on it, Cenk has no real good response to why he's running in a district that he doesn't live in. He just says, look, I talked to my wife and she promised that if I win, I'm going to go move to that district. But I'm not going to move there until after I win.
So I'm going to move to the district, and it's a fair point. Hey, they say you got to come here to represent me. That's right. My wife's a saint. She's got a job near where we live now, but she said, yes, we're willing to move. So I can't wait to go there. It's a wonderful community. I've been all over the district. I love it. Can't wait to move. And you have to think about it this way, Chris. Who do you want? Someone that is going to move in a couple of months and agrees with you completely, or someone who doesn't agree with you at all and happens to be there right now?
Which means as much as Cenk says that he loves the community and as much as Cenk says he loves the district, he's not really willing to commit too much to the district unless the district does something for him first. Not really a good sign for a congressional candidate, because you're saying that you're not even willing to live in the district unless they nominate you to Congress.
The other big stick. The name of your show, The Young Turks. There is a suggestion that until very recently, you didn't believe in the Armenian genocide, and that it's not a good faith historical thing, it's a bias. And that the name of the show suggests where you are on it, and that you are basically ignoring genocide.
No, absolutely false. So is it true that I was wrong about that again earlier in my life? Yes, I wrote a college paper, not a paper, but an editorial about that.
Now, the other thing that I found hilarious about this interview with Chris Cuomo is that Chris actually took the time to press Cenk Uygur about him naming his show The Young Turks while actively being a denier of the Armenian genocide.
Why didn't you change the name of the show?
So the name of the show has absolutely nothing to do with it, but my 2 co-founders are Jewish. When we got together, they weren't Turkish at all. Young Turks, the literal definition in the dictionary is young progressives looking to overthrow the established system.
But when you Google the Young Turks, you're going to get a history of that term. It's like why now Trump and his guys want to call themselves nationalists. When you look at how nationalism has been used, very ugly.
So I want you to keep that definition in mind, because according to Cenk, the Young Turks has nothing to do with his past history of denying the Armenian genocide. And in fact, the only reason he chose the name Young Turks is because it means young progressives overthrowing the established system. And that is a perfect representation of what TYT is.
Wait,
Young
Chris,
Turks was used back in Turkey.
Are you saying that Rod Stewart called the song Young Turks because it was an ode to the Armenian genocide? Of course not. When Michael Ovitz did it at CAA, of course not.
Why did you do it as someone who was saying the Armenian genocide wasn't real?
No, but as I explained, I already disavowed that. It had absolutely nothing to do with that.
Now, Cenk throws up as a part of his defense this Rod Stewart song that's also named to the Young Turks, and he's like, do you really think that Rod Stewart was doing an ode to the Armenian genocide, or does it have some other meaning? And Chris Cuomo bats that down right away because he's like, Rod Stewart doesn't have a history of denying the Armenian genocide. He's also not Turkish. It's a completely different thing. It's different context from him than it is from you. Now look, while Chris Cuomo did a decent job pressing Cenk on this issue and the name of his program, he left out one key factual point that I actually talked about in my previous video. Because I'm not somebody who likes to talk about things like this, somebody's emotional state at the time that they chose a name, without some factual basis to go off of in order to make my determination. But fortunately for us, and unfortunately for Cenk Uygur, there is some factual basis to determine what Cenk's state of mind was when he chose the name The Young Turks. And to understand what his state of mind was, you have to understand when exactly Cenk decided to go from being a Republican to being a progressive Democrat. And that was after George Bush was nominated for the presidency on the Republican side. Cenk was a big John McCain supporter in the 2000 Republican primaries, and then John McCain ended up losing to George W. Bush, who Cenk found to be way too unappealing for him to get on board with. Then, all of a sudden, Al Gore lost the election to George W. Bush, and Cenk Uygur never got over the way that was handled in the courts. So Cenk ended up switching his party affiliation from Republican to Democrat, and that's when he became the progressive that he is today. So because we have that clear timeline from Cenk Uyghur's own words about when he stopped being a Republican and decided to flip to be a Democrat and become a progressive, then we can determine, based on if that's when he named his show The Young Turks, if he was naming it after something to indicate that he was a progressive and his show was for progressives. However, Cenk Uyghur bought the domain name for The Young Turk and The Young Turks in 1998, when he considered himself a Republican, when he wouldn't have considered himself a progressive. So if Cenk Uyghur bought the domain names for The Young Turk and The Young Turks in 1998, before he was considered to be a progressive, it is really unlikely that he bought those domain names so that he could have a show about how progressive he was. In fact, this timeline fits way better with Cenk Uygur's very public denials of the Armenian genocide. Remember, the Young Turks is the group that carried out the Armenian genocide, and at this time, Cenk Uygur was actively defending that organization. So it seems way more likely to me, and way more logical to me, that somebody who was actively defending the Young Turks, actively denying the crimes of the Young Turks, would name his show or buy the domain names to name his future show after that organization, rather than buying it so that it aligns with the political ideology that they themselves did not hold at the time. I'd really appreciate it if Chris Cuomo in this interview, or any media outlets in future interviews, when they ask Cenk about the name The Young Turks and he starts giving them that nonsense about how The Young Turks just means progressives trying to overthrow the established system, would ask him why he bought the domain names for The Young Turks before he considered himself a progressive, if that's the definition he was operating under when he decided to name his show that. But you know, you can't really expect too much from the media. Now, unfortunately for Cenk, even though the media is too dumb to hold him to account on an issue like this, he said so many dumb things, and there's so many videos of him saying dumb things, that the media doesn't have to get stories like this 100% right in order to sink his campaign. Because for everything that they miss, for every key fact about his past that could bury him, that they forget or they don't bother to research, there's 1,000 more videos that just on their own look way worse than anything that the media can bring up and actually question him on.
There's an excellent chance she's a male.
No, okay, look, here's the thing. I'm not going to go quite
Look
as
at
far.
how long her arms are.
I'm not going to go quite as far as you
Oh,
have.
I don't want to find out what's under that skirt.
Okay, just calm down.
And right there's no way I would hook up with her. I think, no way, man. I don't want to find out what's going on downstairs.
Just calm down. You're being too mean. Look, I was going to...
No, she's so much larger than everyone else. No, there's an issue, man.
She's got a great stomach.
How large are her hands?
Yeah, Cenk, when you start insulting a woman claiming that she might secretly be a man just because she has big muscular arms, that's not really going to fly with the progressive base. That's not really going to fly with the Democratic Party, who are literally running a female candidate in place of Katie Hill and making the case that Katie Hill was ousted due to sexism. Comments like that, not really going to help you, my friend. Now look, there's way more controversial stuff from Cenk Uygur's past that are disqualifying to him as a presidential candidate. In fact, I was going to include a clip of an old segment that they used to do on TYT until YouTube released their new TOS that actually forbid the exact thing that the Young Turks were doing in that segment, and I don't want to get a community guideline strike because I'm trying to inform you about that, so I will link in the description box of this video to the segment where they would guess who the woman is based on a photo of the outline of her genitalia.
I'd like to begin the entertainment segment by asking you to identify the camel toe.
Oh boy.
Okay, so we have obtained a photo of a celebrity's camel toe.
So definitely click the link in the description if you're interested in seeing that, and share that clip all over the internet, because Cenk deserves to not be able to live that down, making his one female employee at the time dig up photos of women's parts that can be seen through their clothes just so that they could play an awkward game with it. But finally, I want to close by talking about Cenk Uygur getting endorsed by Bernie Sanders.
Today, Bernie Sanders endorsed me. So look, let me tell you something. It's an incredible honor. Okay, this guy's a legend, and he's fought for us for 40 years. I think he's the most likely to become president of the United States. I've thought that for a long time. I often been alone in thinking that, but all of a sudden here he is, gaining in all of the polling in all of the states. And so for a guy like that in the middle of his own presidential run to have the courage to back me, just a simple congressional candidate, it's humbling. It's amazing.
Now look, obviously Cenk Uygur super happy about this. So happy, in fact, that they did a 23-minute video on Cenk Uygur receiving this endorsement on the Young Turks. I don't know why he's so surprised that he got this endorsement, considering that the Young Turks has basically dedicated themselves to getting Bernie Sanders elected president since the 2016 primary election. But for some reason, Cenk's incredibly happy about this, and he wants to share it with the world that he's been endorsed by Bernie Sanders. Now, what's hilarious about Cenk Uygur being so excited about receiving this endorsement from Bernie Sanders is that shortly after this, so many clips of Cenk being dumb and saying ridiculously insane things on the Young Turks over the past 10 to 15 years have come out, that Cenk Uygur has had to basically say, I can't take any endorsements from any candidates because he's afraid that he'll drag down other Democrats, other progressives that he wants to help get elected. So Cenk is so toxic that him getting an endorsement from Bernie Sanders, he believes would have actually hurt Bernie Sanders. So yeah, while I did think that Cenk Uygur had a really decent chance of winning this congressional race, to be perfectly honest, it is not looking good for Cenk right now. But those are my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, and let me know if you want me to do some deep dives into some of the controversies surrounding Cenk Uygur in future videos. This was very surface level because I hadn't made a video about him announcing, where I just went over some of the major points in his campaign so far. If you want to see something more, definitely write it down in the comments below what you would want me to cover. But that's all I really have for you guys today. If you like this video, then please show me by leaving a like. You can subscribe for more content, follow me on all my social medias. You can support me via my Teespring store, Venmo, PayPal, Patreon. This has been me talking about Cenk Uygur's congressional run. Till next time.